Before the river parted, before the walls of Jericho collapsed in a heap of dust, there was a war in the shadows. The archangel Michael and the devil clashed. Their battleground was Mount Nebo. Their prize? A human corpse, the body of Moses. The man who spoke to God face to face lay dead. Hell wanted his flesh. Heaven claimed his bones. Ancient texts whisper that the mountain shook with the weight of their dispute, but heaven won. When the cosmic war ended, God buried his friend. He hid the body so completely, so violently, that the earth swallowed his memory. 3,400 years have passed. No tomb has been found, no shrine built, no bones worshipped. Just silence. But the moment the dirt settled over Moses, heaven did not rest. The timeline accelerated. Within a matter of days, God triggered 7 impossible events, 7 rapid-fire shifts, things strictly forbidden while the prophet still breathed. The final event? A towering warrior appearing in the night, a drawn sword, a message that shatters everything you thought you knew about divine warfare. This is the untold sequence of the conquest. This is what happened the exact second Moses closed his eyes. Look down at the plains of Moab. 30 days of weeping, 30 days of dust. 2 million people sit in the dirt. They are exposed. They are grieving. They are utterly paralyzed. Their shepherd is gone. The man who split the sea is dead. His successor, Joshua, is unproven. A mere assistant trembling in a massive, suffocating shadow. Think of the psychology of this horde. They are the children of slaves. They do not know how to conquer. Their entire identity was wrapped in one man. Now, that man is buried. The grief is heavy. It breeds panic. The logic of faith is breaking down. And they are not alone. Across the roaring waters of the Jordan River, the Watchers are waiting. The Canaanite kings. These are warlords entrenched in fortress cities, men steeped in the dark traditions of ancient, violent bloodlines. They stand on their high towers. They look down at the valley below. They know Moses is dead. They know the Israelites are mourning. They can smell the vulnerability. The nation of Israel is a wounded animal. The throat is bare. The desert is at their back. A flooded river is at their front. There is nowhere to run. If there was ever a moment to strike, it is now. A single, ruthless charge could wipe the promise from the earth. But no attack comes. For reasons the ancient scrolls never explain, the enemy is frozen. Perhaps a divine terror gripped the land. Perhaps the earth itself held its breath. Israel remains entirely untouched. The tension is a physical weight. Then the morning ends. The 30th day passes. The weeping stops. The millions of tents fall dead silent. And then, God speaks. What follows is unlike anything Israel had seen in 40 years of wandering. 7 events unfold in rapid succession, each one brutal, each one unprecedented, each one reshaping the future of the world. Here is the first event, the seed of a new era. God speaks directly to Joshua. The morning of mourning is over. The camp is a sea of silent tents. Then the voice of the divine cuts through the void. Not through a burning bush, not through a high priest, directly into the mind of Joshua. Moses, my servant, is dead. 4 words. No eulogy, no comfort, no gentle transition. Just a cold, absolute fact. Then comes the command. Now therefore, arise. This is what divine succession looks like. There is no handover meeting, There is no grace period. One leader is buried in an unmarked grave. The next receives military orders before the dirt even settles. For the first time in 40 years, the voice of heaven changes its target. But look closer at the text. 3 times in 9 verses, God issues the exact same command. Be strong and courageous. Why the repetition? Because Joshua is terrified. Ancient Jewish midrash suggests Joshua's heart was physically tearing with grief and dread. For 4 decades, he was merely the shadow, the assistant. He watched Moses shatter the sea. He watched Moses glow with the radioactive presence of Sinai. He watched Moses strike the rock. Now the Titan is gone. 2 million starving, desperate faces are staring at Joshua, waiting for a miracle. God does not say, "Be strong," because Joshua is brave. God says it because Joshua is paralyzed. The most powerful being in the universe is repeating himself. That is the depth of Joshua's fear. But then comes the anchor, the promise. No man shall be able to stand before you. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Different man, same God, same violent mission. Event 2. The escalation. The next morning, the camp wakes to a shock. Officers sprint through the maze of tents. A single, impossible order echoes across the desert. Prepare your provisions. In 3 days, we cross. 3 days, 72 hours. After 40 years of aimless wandering, the wait collapses into a weekend. No nation in history has ever moved this fast after losing its founder. But look at the map. Look at the season. The text is specific. It is harvest time. The Jordan River is at flood stage. This is not a quiet stream. This is a roaring, muddy monster. It sweeps away trees. It drowns men. Generals today, armed with satellites and heavy engineering, would halt. You do not move 2 million civilians, children, and livestock across a raging flood in 3 days. It is logistically insane. Unless you know a secret. Joshua is not operating on logistics. He is operating on a promise. God said move. Joshua says when. This countdown creates something fear cannot: momentum. The clock is ticking. Every hour pushes them closer to the water. Retreat is no longer an option. This is how heaven forces movement. It creates a deadline that makes the impossible the only way out. Event 3. The point of no return. Before the crossing, Joshua sends 2 ghosts into the dark. 2 spies. They slip into enemy territory. They head for Jericho, the oldest fortress, a city built by men steeped in the dark traditions of the ancient world, whispering to the old gods. The spies have no army, no backup, just 2 men walking into a meat grinder. They find refuge in the shadows, the house of Rahab, a prostitute, a woman of the wall. The king's soldiers hunt them, but Rahab hides the men under stalks of flax on her roof. And then she speaks. Her words rewrite the entire intelligence of the war. I know that the Lord has given you the land. A Canaanite pagan, a woman who has never read a scroll of the law, yet she preaches the truth. As soon as we heard it, our hearts melted. There was no courage left in any man. Listen to her timeline. She mentions the drying of the Red Sea. That was 40 years ago. For 4 decades, the Canaanite war machine has been paralyzed by a ghost story. The intelligence is clear. The enemy is not preparing to fight. The enemy is waiting to die. Rahab strikes a deal. A scarlet cord tied in her window, a red marker on a wooden frame. Protection from the coming slaughter. The symbolism is violent and undeniable. Blood on the doorpost. Passover is happening again. This time, for a pagan who chose to believe. Event 4. The warning ignored, the power unleashed. Day 3. The edge of the abyss. 2 million people stare at the swollen, violent Jordan. The roar of the water is deafening. Behind them, the wasteland. Ahead, the empire of Canaan. Between them, certain death. Joshua gives the order. The priests go first. They carry the Ark of the Covenant. Gold over acacia wood. The physical throne of Yahweh. They walk straight into the flood. No bridge, no boats, just bare feet and blind faith. The crowd holds its breath. The priests step down. Their toes break the surface of the rushing water, and the river snaps. It does not dry slowly. It does not gradually recede. The text is horrifyingly specific. 30 kilometers upstream, at a city called Adam, the water stops. It rears up. It rises into a solid, towering heap of liquid glass. The riverbed dries instantly, for 30 kilometers. This is not a narrow path. It is a massive, supernatural highway carved through the laws of physics. God could have waited for the dry season. He did not. He chose the flood. Why? Because this is not about crossing. This is about terror. Every Canaanite king watches from the hills. Their greatest natural defense vanishes in a heartbeat. Their gods of rain and river are publicly humiliated. Psychological warfare executed by heaven. Whatever courage they had left dies that day in the mud of the Jordan. Event 5. The Secret Pact. The crossing is finished. The nation stands on the western shore. But the ritual is not over. God commands 12 men to walk back into the dry, deep riverbed. They lift 12 massive boulders. Evidence. Physical proof to silence the skeptics of future generations. A monument on the shore. But then Joshua does something strange. Something the text leaves hanging in mystery. He takes another 12 stones. He builds a second monument in the middle of the riverbed, where the priests stood. Then the water crashes back down. The river swallows the stones. Why? Why build an altar no human will ever see? The Book of Jubilees and ancient traditions speak of the Watchers, the unseen forces of the deep. God leaves a monument in the abyss, a marker for the spiritual realm. Some things are remembered whether humans see them or not. The rocks beneath the dark water testify. What is done in secret leaves a permanent scar on the earth. Heaven remembers what the water hides. Event 6. The Silence of the Sky. The next morning, day 31. The sun rises over Gilgal. The people step out of their tents. They look at the ground. Nothing. Just dirt. Just dust. For 40 years, every single morning, the ground was covered in manna, angel's food, sweet white flakes. You did not work for it. You did not earn it. It just appeared. An entire generation was born eating miracles. Now the ground is bare. The miracle is dead. Imagine the panic, the suffocating dread. Did God abandon us? Did we sin? No. The timeline has shifted. For 4 decades, Israel was an infant, breastfed by heaven. But you cannot conquer an empire with a beggar's mentality. You cannot slaughter giants while waiting for bread to fall from the clouds. The end of the manna is not a punishment. It is an eviction notice. It is graduation. God cuts the supply line. Miracles make poor soldiers. A people dependent on daily magic will never build, never plant, never swing a sword with lethal intent. The spoon is taken, the sword is given. They must eat the fruit of the earth. They must fight. Event 7. The climax. The cosmic shift. The night before the war. Joshua is alone. The camp is behind him. The monolithic walls of Jericho loom in the moonlight. He is planning. He is sweating. The weight of 2 million souls crushes his chest. He looks up. A man stands in his path. He did not hear him approach. The figure is massive. A sword is drawn, gleaming in the night. The air grows freezing cold. Joshua's military instinct kicks in. He steps forward. He demands the binary answer. Are you for us or for our adversaries? Pick a side. Israel or Canaan? The entity speaks. The voice rattles the stones. No. Neither. I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come. In one sentence, Joshua's entire worldview shatters. He thought Israel was the main army. He thought God was their loyal ally, waiting to assist them. He was wrong. Heaven has its own army, its own war, its own timeline. This invasion began in the celestial realms long before Moses died. Joshua falls on his face. He presses his mouth to the dirt. He worships. The warrior does not stop him. Ordinary angels in Scripture violently refuse worship, but this figure accepts it. He demands Joshua remove his sandals. The ground is holy. The exact words spoken to Moses at the burning bush. This is no angel. This is a theophany, the visible, lethal manifestation of God himself. The commander stands on the battlefield. The message is absolute. You are not the general. You are joining a war already in motion. The cosmic scale is revealed. The destruction of Jericho is not just a human siege. It is an extermination protocol ordered by the throne of heaven. The aftermath is a profound, terrifying silence. Look at the architecture of these 7 days. It is not chaos. It is a calculated divine mechanism. The first 3 events establish authority. The next 2 demonstrate raw, terrifying power. The final 2 force a brutal transition. Moses was the lawgiver. He brought them to the edge. But the law cannot save. The law cannot bring you into the rest. Moses was necessary until the exact moment he became the obstacle. The man who split the sea could not cross the river. The man who saw the face of God on the mountain could not see the commander with the drawn sword in the valley. Moses had to die so Joshua could rise. And look at the name. Joshua. Yehoshua. The Greek Septuagint translates it as Iesus, Jesus. What the law could not finish, the one bearing that name would conquer. This transition was violent. It was instantaneous. There was no training period, no time to heal. God handed over the keys to a kingdom the day after the founder died. He did not wait for Joshua to feel brave. He did not wait for Israel to stop crying. He moved. And those who hesitated drowned in the past. But those who stepped into the floodwaters, terrified and trembling, found themselves walking on dry ground. They learned a secret that the modern world has entirely forgotten. Conquest is not ownership. The land was never theirs to keep. It was theirs to steward. The moment they forgot that, the moment they claimed the glory for themselves, they lost the very dirt Moses begged to touch. The psychology of this moment is devastating. We cling to our leaders. We cling to our manna. We cling to the miracles of yesterday, begging God to repeat the past. But heaven's timeline is ruthless. It does not pause for human grief. Moses climbed Mount Nebo with clear eyes and unbroken strength. He was not dragged to his death. He walked. He looked at the empire he would never enter. He did not argue. He did not beg. He simply laid down and died. That is not a tragedy. That is absolute faithfulness. He knew when his part in the cosmic play was over. Some of us are born to start fires we will never see burn. Some of us will build bridges we will never cross. The work continues. The army marches on. So, I ask you, look at your own life. What river are you standing in front of right now? What promise feels completely impossible because the water is at flood stage and the manna has stopped falling? Are you waiting for the fear to go away? Are you waiting for a sign? Joshua was terrified. The creator of the universe had to tell him 3 times to stop shaking. Fear does not disqualify you. It is the prerequisite for courage. God does not honor the absence of fear. He honors the foot that steps into the freezing water while the heart is pounding. The river will not part until your boots get wet. The manna will not return. It is time to draw the sword. What part of this ancient war hit you the hardest? What detail shifted your perspective? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. The text is alive, and it is speaking. If this journey into the shadows of Scripture revealed something you have never seen, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We do not skim the surface. We dig into the dirt. We uncover the passages the world skips over. Share this with someone staring at their own impossible river today. They need to know the commander is already on the field. The invasion has just begun. In our next video, we march on Jericho. The walls did not just fall down. The archaeology proves they fell outward. And that single, violent detail changes every Sunday school story you were ever told. We've been walking through the wilderness with Joshua and the people of Israel, feeling their doubts, their courage, and their obedience to a higher calling. Now, as the dust settles from their crossing of the Jordan, we find ourselves on the brink of one of the most pivotal moments in biblical history. The people of Israel stand at the gates of Jericho, facing a city that stands as a symbol of their past struggles and future victories. But before we dive into the battle, we need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about this iconic moment. The collapse of Jericho's walls, something so deeply embedded in the fabric of our biblical understanding, has been mythologized for centuries. But what if I told you that what you've heard in church, what you've read in Sunday school, isn't entirely accurate? This isn't just a story of triumph. This isn't just about walls crumbling. This is about the geological and archaeological evidence that forces us to rethink how we interpret these ancient events. For generations, we've pictured the city of Jericho's walls as crumbling inward, perhaps as a supernatural act of God's power, with the dust and rubble cascading toward the invaders. But recent archaeological findings prove otherwise. The walls fell outward, into the very city they were meant to protect. Let's stop and think about this for a moment. Why is this detail so important? If the walls fell inward, it would simply suggest that the city was naturally overwhelmed and destroyed by an earthquake or some other natural phenomenon. However, when the walls fall outward, it creates a very different picture. This suggests that the destruction was not only supernatural, but specifically targeted. This wasn't just a collapse due to time or force. This was a carefully orchestrated event, designed to make the city's defenses completely useless in an instant. Imagine the sheer force it would take to make those walls crumble in such a way. The destruction would have been catastrophic. Everything in its path would have been destroyed. And that's exactly the image we should have in our minds as we march toward Jericho. It's not just a story of God's power. It's a strategic, violent, and deliberate act of war. And the most chilling part? This detail, how the walls fell, has been almost completely overlooked in the past. Another striking point we need to consider is the timing. The walls of Jericho fell just at the right moment, at the very instant Israel's army began their final march around the city. The city was already in a state of heightened tension. The people of Jericho were aware of Israel's presence, they were familiar with the stories of God's power, and they knew that Israel was drawing near. The timing of the wall's collapse is integral to understanding God's intervention. It's not just the walls falling, it's God's timing to perfection. Why is this important? Because it shows that the invasion wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't a natural event that Israel had no control over. God's timing and direction were the keys to victory. The walls fell when they were supposed to, not a moment too soon or too late. And while the enemy might have been watching, the defeat of Jericho was already assured the moment God had planned.